Kia ora team, Noel Willoff here, host of the Beyond the Surface podcast. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. But before we get started, I've noticed that over 93% of you watching on YouTube do not subscribe. So if you are enjoying the content and these conversations, please make sure you go hit subscribe on the button below. Also, before we get started, please go check out our official sponsor of the podcast, Moana Road. They've got a whole range of awesome products available at the website. So go check them out in the link in the description below to help us reach more of the guests on that you love. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, Noah?
Really good, thanks. Thanks for coming on, even though you saw a car crash on the way down here, up here.
Dramatic stuff on the State Highway 59.
Yeah, as usual. Hey, I was really keen to start this podcast around your story, co-founding Six Barrel Soda, and really take the listeners through the journey of an entrepreneur, how you started the business, what have been some of the trials and tribulations along the way, and then pivot to some of the stuff that you're up to now. I believe it was about like 12 years ago when you probably first co-founded it. Would that be right?
Yeah, we started in 2012. May 2012 is when we opened.
May 2012.
Yeah.
If you were to have, let's say, like a 5-minute conversation with Joe back in 2012, what would you tell him about the journey ahead?
Oh man, I think we were real naive. We were like, let's just do this. We're going to grow it real quick, and then someone will give us millions of dollars in like 2 or 3 years time, and we can just chill out. Like we didn't. The naivety, I think, was actually great because it meant we actually did the thing. It was kind of enough to go, yeah, we could probably do something here. But probably maybe put a little more rigor around some of our decision making.
Yeah. And where did because I know you have had, a bit of a career bartending outside of university in like Australia, London and France. And then was it your other co-founder, is it Mike? He reached out to you with this sort of idea around like a business. This isn't Six Barrel Soda, it was another sort of venture. Can you just speak to like, how did you first dip your toes into, I guess, sort of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, cool. So I went to university and like worked in hospitality and got real into that. Like bars were real fun in my early 20s and so rolled with that. And I think I fundamentally didn't really know what I wanted to be doing, right? I didn't have a real clear like I'm going to be a lawyer or whatever. I did do 2 years of law school, but after that I realized I am not going to be a lawyer. So I think I was kind of just trying to work that out. And then I was living in London, and Mike's my oldest friend, and he gave me a call and was like, "Hey, I've got this business proposition for you. I want you to partner with me on this thing." And I was like, "What is it?" And he was like, "I can't tell you." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "I can't tell you. I'll send you a letter." And I was like, "All right, man." He was in Wellington, so he sent me this letter in the mail, and it showed up, 3 weeks later or whatever, and it was a full business proposition to start this thing. And I was like, this is a crazy idea, but I'm pretty keen to do something, so I'll come back and we'll see if we can make it happen. And then came back to New Zealand, did some travel on the way back. I was like, I'll be back in 6 months or whatever it was. Did a bit of travel, came back here, worked out that did a bit of like research into that business idea and worked out that was a crazy thing for two guys in their mid-20s with no money to do. So we started something else.
What was the business idea?
It's probably highly confidential, but it was we wanted to set up, Mike's real into like hot springs and saunas and things like that. And so we were like, let's set up an inner city Wellington, hot tubs and saunas,
nice.
Place you can go and hang out. No one was doing that back then. Now saunas are super hot, so we were well ahead of the curve. But super hot. Did you get that one?
Dad joke, love it.
But yeah, no. To be viable, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we had single-digit thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And have you always had with your mate Mike like a really strong foundational level of trust?
Yeah, I think so. Because we've known each other for so long, like we grew up together pretty much, and we have like really different, I think, personalities and approaches to things. Like he was the one at uni who was like, you know, working both days on the weekend, doing student job search hustles, like investing his money in the stock market and trying to like beat his student loan debt with stock returns and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was not doing those things. But I think we complemented each other really well, and you know, in our approach to things. And because we had that history, you know, there was never really much worry about, well, from my side at least, about trust.
Yeah. I'm keen to hear your thoughts around like discovering a niche or like differentiating yourself within like a quite saturated market. And I feel like that's quite a common theme that you've had throughout probably your journey and your career. Even as you've, you know, launched different hospitality businesses, you had your quite successful, was it restaurant cafe out in Newtown?
Yeah, we had a little bar and restaurant. Yep.
Yeah. And that was, I guess, where the sort of inspiration from how I understand it, where Six Barrel Soda sort of came into fruition around you actually, like focusing in on making like handmade sort of like sodas, like a, you know, alcohol sort of alternative for your customers. Like, where do you see, like, do you think having a differentiating factor is incredibly important in like today's society as like an entrepreneur in a very competitive marketplace?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's pretty easy to start a business, right? Like you can open a cafe relatively easily, right? You take out the rent, you do a fit out, and you know, you open the doors. But there's so many of everything now. Like it's really easy to start a tech business now. You can set up an app pretty quickly. It's relatively cheap. So you've got to have a real key point of difference, and it's got to be much better for the customer, right? So for us, even in our first couple of businesses were hospitality ventures, and we wanted to make them super weird and super memorable, and like, you know, we wanted to make them places where people went and were like, that's a real different way of doing, like even down to real little things, right? So for us, it was one, to differentiate so that people would come to our businesses and buy our products. Yeah. And two, it's always been a bit of a like creative outlet for me running businesses. So it was kind of a way of going, how can we do these things differently? How can we make them, you know, make people feel different when they came to our venues, or do things differently with our products?
And is it a mix of like creativity, like failing fast, just giving like shit a crack, or like what level of sort of preparation and sort of research goes involved to being like, hey, maybe there's a bit of a sort of niche here that people will enjoy and engage with?
I think now it's really different. So now if I was starting something new, it'd be a really different process, right? And I think that comes back to that naivety and like why younger people are actually really good at starting businesses. Yeah. Which is a couple of reasons. One, I think they have a much higher risk profile, right? Like if you fail, I remember, you know, talking to Mike early days and I was like, oh, what if this doesn't work? And he was like, just go bankrupt, man. It's not that bad. And I'm like, that's not good advice, but it was like, there's much less to lose, right? When you've got kids and a mortgage and, you know, whatever else. So I think for me, it was a little bit of that combination and just wanting to kind of make things happen.
Was there any, I guess actually before I move to that question, can you speak us through like what was the catalyst for the idea of Six Barrel Soda, and like where did you find that almost opportunity in the market to go forward with it?
Our first two businesses were, we had a little cafe at the top of Cuba Street and a kind of caravan, and then we opened a restaurant and bar in Newtown. And the plan was to open a business every year for 5 years, till we had 5 businesses and could kind of run those as like a group. But hospitality is really hard, and the hours are terrible, and we were kind of like, two's good, you know, two hospitality venues is good. We need something that has a bit more scalability, has better work hours. But really it came from being at Monterey, serving these drinks, noticing a trend of people being really into the kind of more interesting independent craft stuff that we were doing. So we were, before there was tons of craft beer bars everywhere, we like had independent taps, and we wanted to serve good drinks. And for us, the soft drinks thing was a big issue, right? Because there was no real independent soft drink companies at the time. of any decent scale or quality. So we started making them ourselves. So we kind of fell into it of just going, no one else is doing this, and we want it for our place, so let's do it. People loved it, and then we were like, let's turn this into something bigger.
Do you remember like the moment where you've got that first like feedback from one of your customers around your drinks, and you're like, maybe there's something going here?
Yeah, I mean, I think because being front of house at the bar was really good, right? It was a really good way to kind of test things with customers, because you can, especially in a drinks business, because you can go, do you like this? Do you not like this? What are they asking for? So it actually was pretty amazing for customer validation. I remember, at one point a customer came into the bar and like just ordered for something ordered a non-alcoholic drink that we'd made up just by name. I think it was like a peach and honey iced tea or something, which, at the time, every restaurant basically had like Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, cranberry juice, and orange juice, right? So, or lemon lime bitters. So it wasn't, it was pretty unheard of for people to kind of choose something weird by name without looking at a menu. And I was like, that's interesting. Yeah.
And how would you like describe, I guess, your like risk profile around business? Obviously, you look at, like the sort of drinks industry, there's some massive players in there. Very hard to compete against some of the big dogs like Coca-Cola or get any sort of market share. What's your sort of risk factor for taking those leaps in an industry that is so competitive?
Yeah, we were always self-funded, so we never took on like, $1 million of investment or anything I think the risk profile changes a lot when you're spending other people's money.
Yeah.
For us, it was always our own money, so we were pretty conservative, I guess. We were always like, let's put as much as we can back into the business from what we've got, but let's not, take out massive loans to do things. And partly that was like a lifestyle decision. I think a year after I started Six Barrel, I had a daughter, and we weren't really in a position to be like going all in on crazy stuff. So I think that's that thing that started to change over the years as well.
Yeah.
And probably get more risk aware.
Yeah. And so not having any like sort of capital investment coming in, was that a strategic decision just around like occupying your own sort of headspace, not having all of these other shareholders that you're accountable to? Did you feel like that was probably the best sort of decision to sort of scale and grow to fit your own sort of lifestyle and family commitments?
Yeah, I think in the early days, it was really about trying to build a business that we loved, right? So that gets harder the more investors you have or shareholders you have. So we were really clear on where we wanted to go. We wanted it to be creative. We wanted to be able to try things out. I think, I think that does get more challenging. We have a third business partner now. So after 6 years or so, we had a partner buy into the business, and that was really an approach of less about capital into the business to scale growth or whatever, but bringing different skills and different ideas into the business.
Yeah, nice. And I still remember, I don't know, have you still got the place on Eva Street?
No.
Because I remember I used to work at the Wellington Chocolate Factory back
nice.
in the day, and used to just literally stroll down. And I remember going sort of upstairs and having some of your sodas and just feeling like I was in like, I don't know, the 90s or something, 1980s. Like it seemed awesome. So when was that decision to then sort of, I guess, like scale into Six Barrel Sodas of what it is today?
Yeah. So we had a soda store, on Eva and Dixon, that we opened at the start of the business, right? So we opened it to be the front of the business, I guess, in a non-dodgy way. We wanted that to be, for a couple of reasons. We wanted people to be able to come in and see us making it. Like, transparency has always been massive for us. Soft drinks is a pretty murky sort of business, and we thought that'd be good. But two, we knew that we could run a successful cafe that, covered some of the costs, and we weren't sure about the wholesale side of the business. And then once we got that open and running, the cafe went really well. The wholesale business was starting to go really well, and we couldn't kind of do both things. So we scaled that back and moved production after about 4 or 5 years or so.
And it must be like very tough if you're wanting to set up a, like a soda bar. Is that what you call it? A soda bar?
Yeah, we've called it various things. Yeah, soda shop, dinette. It was a dinette when we were doing foods.
Nice.
Yep.
So I guess there'll be so much scope creep, right? Because you're
Yep.
starting up like a soda shop. It's like, okay, cool. Now we could do coffee. Oh, now if we're doing coffee, you may as well do scones. And you
Totally.
can just keep building. So like, how did you stay disciplined around that?
Oh, we did it the other way around. So we were really undisciplined, and when we opened, we were doing brunch, and we were like cooking burgers and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think we got to a point where we were like, the cafe's a decent business, but the potential is much higher for the soda side of the business, and we can't do both things because you'd be trying to like make sodas or make syrups when there's customers in and they're trying to order bacon and eggs, and it was not a great fit. So I think we got to a point where we were like, let's stop that and go all in on this.
Yeah. Also heard as well, and like I remember when sort of Six Barrel Soda sort of like launched, and just like the success you had sort of early on, like very good sort of like market recognition, especially around like the Wellington community. I heard a story that like shortly after launching the soda shop, you had like a inquiry from another company looking to potentially like acquire Six Barrel Soda. And this was probably like the moment for you and Mike where you're like, sweet, like, you know what I mean? Like we're gonna sell this thing quite early into the journey. But that sort of panned out to be something probably a lot different. So yeah, can you just speak to what was that situation that popped up when you had that interest around somebody potentially acquiring the business, and what that taught you? Because I believe the offer was a lot less than what you guys wanted.
Yeah, I think that it's when we came into the business, it was kind of at the time, 2012 was kind of when a bunch of the breweries were getting bought up, and there was a lot of interest in buying kind of newer drinks brands. So yeah, we built a pretty good brand in the first couple of years. We're getting a lot of attention, picked up a bunch of customers, and then had an approach from one of the big companies. And yeah, we were popping champagne, right? We were like, we've done it. This is great. Yeah, we're going to retire and move to the Maldives or something. But we went through this process, and we were like, we got halfway through, and we're like, this isn't what we wanted to be doing. And then conveniently, the offer was, basically out of their marketing budget, not actually a proper acquisition. So we were like, this isn't a great fit for us financially. We'll give it a nudge to see if we can do something better. Yeah.
Can you share what that offer was back then in 2015, 16?
They wanted to buy. Well, first of all, they wanted to buy a lot of the model that those big companies work on is they buy a part of the business. So they'll come in and say, buy 20% of your business, and then if you hit these KPIs over the next 3 years, they buy you out the whole business.
Gotcha.
So it's one of those deals. Valuation was kind of actually probably pretty reasonable, but for us, we were hoping, it wasn't retirement money.
Yeah.
And we kind of, then you're tied to them. You can't sell to anyone else. If they choose not to buy you, you're out, and you're starting from scratch. And that's happened to a lot of companies. A lot of drinks companies got those offers, took those offers, and got stuck.
Yeah, true. So what did that teach you both?
I think it gave us a lot more focus on like what we wanted to be doing. So it gave us a lot more like, okay, this is a thing that we could probably do. We could probably build this bigger, sell it to someone for Maldives money, and
Maldives would be nice, eh?
Yeah. I've never been. I really don't know much about it, but it sounds good. So I think it just gave us a bit more. They also identified some things in the business that were weak, right? And that was actually really good to have that from them to go, how can we strengthen these?
Yeah. Especially around like starting the business, did you have any good mentors? Like, did you get like, was that journey? Obviously, you've got Mike as your business partner, but that journey launching Six Barrel Sodas, did it become like quite lonely at times?
Yeah, for sure. I think later it became lonely, right? At the time we were building it, it was fun because everyone loves it, and everyone's like, yeah, we'll help you out, and people were coming in and helping us paint and set up the shop, and we had designers helping, and we paid them, but mates rates. So I think there was a lot of community around building a business together. I think that was really great. That loneliness probably came later, right? When you're running it and it's hard, and having Mike there was always really great. But yeah, it's pretty isolating sometimes.
What were some of those like hardest moments for you?
I think for me, one of the like learnings was, I was always like, I'm the boss. I have to be able to do everything, and just handle whatever comes. And so there were definitely times when when things were hard, or deals didn't go through, or months where we were losing cash, and I'd just be I'd probably absorb that way too much, and not be as good at going, okay, that's just happening, and I've done my best. So that probably came later. Like the hardest time was COVID, right? That was brutal. So we got pretty stung, and had to work out how to get through that.
Because you're looking to open up like an Auckland branch, and then was it 3 days afterwards the COVID lockdown hit?
Yeah, we went. So back to that risk thing, right? We went all in like November 2019 to the business. We were like, okay, next year we're going to do heaps of big stuff, and we're going to give things a swing. So we launched in the States in like December 2019 into a whole bunch of stores. We were planning out opening our Auckland soda store because we were trying to expand our market up there and our reach up there. So we had the launch party for our store, which was on K Road, on the Friday night, and I was up in Auckland. I was like getting ready, like we had all the invites out. There's 150 people coming or something, and then Prime Minister's on the news going, we're locking the country down on Tuesday. Yeah.
Shit. Could you have chose a worse time? Like,
I don't think so. Nah.
Like, genuinely, is there like a worse time to launch
It's probably as bad as it gets in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
My phone was just blowing up with texts from people being like, hey, not going to make it tonight. Sorry. We still had the party though. It was pretty somber.
It wasn't like the last party of freedom. Were you guys?
Nah, well, for some people it was, but no, it was more like, oh God, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, it was just such a crazy time, eh? It's I mean, everyone says that, but I remember like when we were entering the first lockdown, like never had a cigar before, but like sharing a cigar with my old man at his house, like looking over sort of Plymouton and being like, are we going to be alive? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just
we're
like,
all going to die.
Because you saw that footage from like the news of like bodies collapsing in China, and you know, just like sheets over bodies in the street, and I don't know, it was just such a surreal moment. Yeah,
I remember talking to the woman we had running our shop up there. She was in her early 20s, and she was like, oh, so what's going to happen? I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. What do you mean? She was like, well, what happened when this happened another time?
Spanish flu.
And I was like, I was not alive in the 1919s. But yeah, it was pretty unprecedented, but we got through.
Do you reckon that was like one of the, I wouldn't say like darkest moments, one of the hardest times for the business?
Certainly for the business, yeah. And for me, it was actually kind of great because I went, it was really, really hard, but it made me realize a whole bunch of stuff that I'd been doing terribly, right? Like, I remember having a call with Mike and being like, okay, so what's our 30-day plan and our backup plan and da-da-da. And he was just like, man, we don't know what's happening tomorrow. He was like, stop worrying about it. We'll just see what happens because we can't make a plan. And it was kind of a really nice reminder, I think there's this thing where, so many businesses closed in that year, and many of them were because of COVID, right? But many of them needed to close anyway. And it was actually a really nice kind of reason to go, hey, it's not my fault, and as a business owner, I think you do go, everything's your fault. And suddenly something is out of your hands. It was actually quite empowering. Yeah,
true. That's a cool perspective. I've never actually heard that angle on it before. I also heard through an old presentation that you did that I think shortly after sort of launching, things are going really well, and then there was like another company that basically did like a spin-off product of Six Barrel Soda, basically butchered what looks like your entire like marketing style and essence. So yeah, like what was going on there, man? Can you speak to like how you first found that out and what was like the situations that followed?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Dickheads.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we found out in this super crazy way. So they were an Australian-based company, and our ex-employee's girlfriend worked at the place where they were printing their like posters for their launch event or something. And she like snuck a little photo, sent it to us, and was like, "Yo, look at this! What the hell?" So we found out like before they launched, like before they had anything. So it was pretty great because it's kind of better than
Good
finding
timing,
out later. And then we looked into them and realized that so they had a electronics business that basically did the same thing. They just knocked off, like a knockoff Dyson or a knockoff, I don't know, GHDs or whatever. So they were really good at, ripping off ideas, doing it probably cheaper. So it was pretty brutal, but there wasn't really a hell of a lot we could do about it because the product looked exactly like ours, but you can't, we don't own the bottle mold. It's kind of, we weren't really ready. We weren't really able to protect too much of it. So I talked to a friend who was an IP lawyer, and he was like, "You could probably beat them. It'll cost you $100,000, and you might lose." He was like, "You should spend $100,000 on like beating them in the market." So we gave that a nudge.
And that was sound advice, you reckon?
Yeah, they probably beat us in the market in some ways. They got acquired or somewhat acquired by SodaStream a few years later. But I think it was sound advice. Like we, even if you beat them, they just changed it a little bit, right? You can't really do too much about it. But it was really good. It was one of those things that for us, it was a real good learning of like, okay, like our, we are relatively copyable. We are, what can we do that other people can't, right? So that really helped us lean into doing the like experimental flavors and having a real like personal, authentic brand, things like that, if you're just knocking it off, you just can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. Adding on to that, like what are those key things that you did as Six Barrel Soda that, made you sort of stand out? Like what were those, I guess, like ingredients that, made you guys a bit more of a niche?
Yeah. Well, partly it was just that we were doing something that no one had done in a long time, right? Like in the old days, there used to be soda bars all over the town, right? There was heaps of places in Wellington and every city really that made their own drinks and sold their own drinks, right? It was only more recently that, Coca-Cola shut that all down by dominating the market. So there was a little bit of like nostalgia, I think, from some customers. There was a little bit of like, it was at the time when, craft beer was going crazy and people were like trying super weird, strong, sour, spicy, whatever beers.
Yeah.
So for us, we kind of leaned into that as well, and always wanting to have a product that was a bit more interesting and a bit more unique, like natural and ethical. That was really important to us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we did a few crazy flavors that were kind of a relatively bit of a lark, but that was part of building the brand of like experimentation and creativity.
And do you feel like that sort of fulfilled you as an individual? Because you seem like a very creative person, from being like, a bartender and just having this, I don't know, creative outlet that you can like push into, like, does it,
Yeah, I think it's partly that and partly I just get real bored really easily. So for me, being able to like put out a new flavor every month or whatever was great. Yeah, so probably just a little bit of personality and a little bit of like, it's important for the brand to kind of be doing things that bigger brands can't do.
Did you have any other like experiences with any of the other like big dogs in the sort of like drink and soft drink industry? Like, did you get to learn a little bit more around how much of a operation like Coca-Cola is, for example? Like I think I read something the other day. It's like, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's like over like 1 billion pieces, like products they sell like every day. It's like insane. Crazy numbers.
Yeah, totally. So we did a couple of like factory tours. So we went to where they made was called budget soda at the time. I guess it's called like value or whatever now.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Like the Jolly
home,
sort of drinks.
yeah, like the home brand at the supermarkets. We went to where they were making it out in the hut, and it was a really interesting experience because we were going out there thinking, oh, they're gonna like be a little bit embarrassed by their like pretty awful products, right? And they totally weren't. They were like, their whole thing was like, we can make these so cheap.
Right.
They were like, look how cheap we can make these. And we were like, wow, this is not how we approach it at all. I remember they were like, oh, this is a sweetener that we use. And it's whatever it was. It was something like 200 times as sweet as sugar or whatever. They're like, yeah, it's great because we can just add that and it's real cheap. And I was like,
efficiencies.
yeah. And I was like, what is it? And they were like, what? And I was like, what is it? Like, what is it made of? And they were like, you know. And
We don't ask those questions.
that was weird, yeah. And then the other one we went to the Frucor factory in Auckland where they were canning fee. And they showed us the line. It was this huge line, no people, all robot, you know, robot machines and things. And there's just cans of E going like bang, 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 bang.
Wow.
And we were like, how long, you know, how often do you run that? And they were like, oh, you know, 20 hours a day or whatever it was. Like the amount of time, it was just like constant. And I was like, is that how many Vs you sell? And they were like,
Wow.
It was just like the scale of it was pretty awful, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, probably impressive, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess it must be the challenging thing, like wanting to, you know, and like launching a sustainable sort of like environmentally friendly, eco-conscious company is, you know, you've got to make profit, you've got to make efficiencies across your process, but like maybe not to that extent. So did you find that experience like inspiring, or like what did you take out of that experience and seeing that?
Yeah, no, I think the sheer consumption of products is pretty horrendous, right? Like that's always something we've been trying to rail against a little bit, right? We were never like, you know, buy a bottle of our syrup and drink it in a day, like never like drink more of this stuff. It was always, and we were like, you know, here's different ways you can drink it, and we want people to, you know, buy it and use it. But you know, a lot of marketing around drinks and actually all products really is like consume, like have as much as you can, and that was never really right for us. So we were really trying to find that balance of like make a viable business. For us, the market size is massive, and we were small, so we could get more customers and grow that market without trying to increase consumption. And for us, it was always buy this instead of you know plastic bottles of chemical water.
Yeah, of like probably, you know, that sweeteners, probably vape juice or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Yeah, they're probably reusing it now.
And when did like the sort of wholesale component of the business like really start to take off for you?
I remember our first like good sized customer was More Wilson's in Wellington. So we were making, you know, we're running the soda shop and cooking food and I think we were making something like 24 bottles of a flavor in a run, right? And that was like, you know, a few hours work for us. And we went to Moore's Moore's approached us and we're like, hey, we'd love to stock you guys. Can we put through an order? And we're like, yeah, go for it. Thinking that order like 12 bottles. And they ordered like 24 of each of 7 flavors or something. So yeah, I don't know, whatever, 150 flavors, 150 bottles or something. And for us, it was like by far the biggest order we'd ever had. You know, it was, you know, $2,000 or something. And we were like, holy moly, we have made it. And we're like, you know, work day and night to like knock out the order in a couple of days. So that kind of gave us an insight of like, hey, this could be more than a soda shop that sells a few bottles of soda to a few cafes around town.
Do you ever think about like, what if you didn't start Six Barrel Soda? Like what your life would have looked like and what you would have been doing?
Oh, I don't have time for that. No, yeah, I don't know. I think if we certainly always would have started something else. So, you know, when we did start Six Barrel, we had other things that we'd considered, you know, spin outs of the other different products from Monterey that we were looking to put out, like, I don't know, spicy mustard and, you know, barbecue sauce and things like that. So that was the thing that we looked at. But we were always really keen to kind of go, what is the next version of this? And how can we kind of use some of our learnings? So I think we would have done something else, but I'm not sure what.
Yeah. And like, what's the other side of, I guess, like being an entrepreneur or a business owner that people probably wouldn't understand or know about? Like, I think lots of people have the like perception that, you know, you own your business, you can knock off work whenever you want. Like like it can't, obviously you work really hard, but the sort of freedom that comes with it is what makes it worthwhile. So yeah, what's your take about like being an owner of a business that people probably wouldn't understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true to some extent, right? Like you can set your own, the way you want to work.
Schedule, yeah.
The struggle is most people don't, right? Because most people are like, I need to be working all the time and you know, wreck myself to do it. I think a couple of them. One, people think that people that own businesses make tons of money, right? And sometimes they do, obviously. But often people will be like, I see you guys everywhere. You must be creaming it, you know, like, and that's not usually the case for most business owners, right? That's probably one. I think also, I think people probably understand the like forever, like full-timeness of it, right? Like it is something you think about all the time. It is something you like worry about all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if people who have, especially in like less intense jobs, probably understand like how much that is a forever thing and an all the time thing.
Yeah. How have you like managed with that side of things, like just the intensiveness and like the all-consuming nature of owning your own business? Like, are there things that you've done to sort of look after your mental health or balance your well-being that are quite important to you?
Yeah, that definitely came later though. So for me, I mean, I always tried to balance my home life as well. That was always pretty key, especially having a baby, you know, pretty soon after having a business. In the middle of having businesses. So I definitely tried to balance the time. So like how much I was around, how much I was at home, how much I was helping out. But yeah, mental and physical health were trash, you know. But I was, you know, in my early 30s, it was pretty, you know, relatively easy to stay okay.
Yeah.
And that just got harder and harder. But I think COVID, that having that like reset was really helpful for me to kind of go, okay, I've been sprinting for 10 years. I need to work out how to jog a bit more.
Yeah. Do you have any like signs around like burnout for yourself that you sort of pick up on? You're like, man, I'm kind of redlining here. Need to chill out or go to the beach, go for a surf or...
I think I'd been redlining for 10 years. So I think it was more being aware that wasn't normal, right?
Right.
I remember having a chat to, we were swimming at the river in Kaitoke with some friends, and I pitched them this idea for a business that was basically like, for me, it was like, you know, it was like, imagine if you could go on a holiday and it was just like you're in this room and you couldn't really leave the room, and it was like you just had to stay there for a few days. And they were like, that sounds a bit like prison. Yeah. And I was like, prison sounds quite good. And they were like, are you okay? And I was like, shit. So that was quite a good one. When your business ideas start to be like sounding like they're a jail, it's probably a pretty good idea that you need to build more of that into your everyday life. Yeah.
You ever just imagine a room with like cushions all around it and like you're wrapped up and you can't move?
Yeah, like heavily medicated. Yeah.
Sedated.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, do you think about like entrepreneurs talk about burnout enough? I feel like it's kind of like championed in a lot of ways and like sort of looked up to as the way I sort of see it sometimes. Maybe that's a bit more of like the social media hustler culture, but yeah, what do you think? Do you reckon it's talked about enough?
I reckon it's definitely starting to be, right. It's absolutely way more accepted than it was a while ago, right? Of going, hey, that's not cool. Like 80-hour weeks aren't cool. I think in New Zealand, we're way better at it than, you know, we've still got this like, you know, old school, you know, stiff upper lips type thing, but we're in the kind of ecosystem of entrepreneurs and stuff, there's a lot more accepting that you can't just sprint forever. Compared with, you know, like Silicon Valley or whatever, where it is just, I'm an optimized robot human who does everything all the time.
Maximize shareholder returns.
Yeah. I think Kiwis have more values than that, or different values, should I say?
That's a really good point. And then I guess sort of like pivoting to like a bit more recent into what's happening now with Six Barrel. We can speak about this now because this will be airing, I think, after you sort of go live with the announcement. But yeah, sort of tell us about what that journey has been like, sort of like stepping away from the business, and more so actually the question is like, what has actually been like handing over the reins of the business and selling Six Barrel?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I was like, I'm done. I realized I was done. I realized I was done in I've done all the things I wanted to do. The next part of the journey is not something I've got the energy for. I had a kind of business coach at the time who was like, what do you need? What do you need from the business to like feel better about it and to like, get you through? What does the business need to be doing in 3 years? And it was quite a good realization that like, I'm done. I was like, I can't really think of anything. So so I stepped out of the day-to-day running. We hired a GM. That process was actually really good, right? We conveniently had I had a coffee with who was to become the GM, Amy, who's an old friend, and I was like, what are you up to? She was like, I'm kind of done with this thing that she was doing. And I was like, do you want my job? And she was like, yeah. I was like, you want to start in like 2 months? She was like, yeah. It was like the easiest thing in the world. So we did some interviews and stuff, but so that process was really good actually. And for me, it was a good opportunity to go, let's give someone else a chance in running this. I can have a bit more perspective on it. I went out and got a job, which was a quite a different experience for me as well. But that's taught me heaps as well. And then we got to a point probably 6 months or so ago where we were like, hey, actually, we think all of us are done with the business, and it's time to pass it on.
What does that look like in theory? Like actually selling a business? I'm sure like a lot of people listening to this podcast, probably young people, they haven't like sold or acquired a business before. Like in practical terms, like what is that process that you have to go through? Like are you like a Dragon's Den pitch? What does it look like?
I mean, it depends on what the type of business is, right? Like if it's a big private equity buyout or a major company buying you, it's a really different process. We are selling to a medium-sized drinks company, independently owned drinks company, kind of about the same size as us. So it's more of a merger type thing. But yeah, for I mean, you can put it on Trade Me, you can put it on NZ Biz Buy Sell and see what happens. But or you get a broker, right? It's just like selling a house. You get a broker, you tell them about it, they go out and find someone to buy the business for you, take a cut.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's really interesting. Didn't know you could sell businesses on Trade Me. There you go.
Yeah, Trade Me property,
Trade Me business, Trade Me jobs.
Yeah, they got it all.
I think like what I've heard is like a lot of founders sort of struggle with the concept of like letting go. Founder syndrome is something that gets talked about quite a lot. I think that's particularly true when the business is quite like embedded into someone's identity. Yep. Did you ever feel like that was you? And if so, how are you then, I guess, like processing sort of departing from Six Barrel in that term?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, stepping out of the business a couple of years ago was part of that, right? To go, is this a thing that can survive without me doing it all? And it was, which is good. But that was also part of, probably for me personally, going, how do I separate myself from it in that way? We had sold businesses before, so when we went through that process with our bar in Newtown, I was like, this is my dream bar, like I spec'd it up exactly how I wanted it. It was like exactly what I wanted a bar to be. And I was like, I'll never sell this bar. This is my bar forever. And then once we started Six Barrel, I was working there, and we had and people in it. When we decided to sell, it was like actually kind of great to pass that on to someone else who can maybe give it the love, because you realize you just can't keep that up. So yeah, I mean, it has been obviously, it's going to be really different, but we think we've got the right people to take it on. I think that's really key. If you find someone, I think if you're selling the business to someone, you're like, oh, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Because it is, you put blood, sweat and tears into it, right?
Yes.
It is
12 years, more.
Yeah. It is important, I think, for it to go somewhere that you're like, there's a pretty good chance they'll do an even better job with it.
Yeah. Into a safe pair of hands.
Yeah, totally. And I think we found that.
That's awesome. I mean, like, what do you do? What do you do next? You're obviously still at Creative HQ. Like, are you going to the Maldives? What's the?
No, we didn't. No, we're not going to Maldives. I'm going on holiday, but not to the Maldives. Yeah, I mean, well, that was part of it as well, right? Is I now run the startup program at Creative HQ. That's a pretty all-encompassing job, really. It's full on, and having Six Barrel is kind of a when you're not in the business every day, you get the like real highs and the real lows, right? You miss out on all the middle stuff, which is actually kind of most of what's fun.
Yeah.
And so for me, yeah, it's kind of been a bit of a weight, I guess, having that there. A little bit of there's risk, right? If we keep if you have a bad winter and suddenly you need to pitch in money to the business, that's challenging. So yeah, I think what's next is take a bit of time to like have less weight on my shoulders, and then see what comes from that.
Do you think you'll start something up again?
I think I'd like to. I mean, I like the idea of like a side hustle business. For that, it's for the more for like the fun and the hustle and the challenge of it.
Yeah.
Full on like all in business, I'm not sure. Not short term. Maybe one day.
And what's it like going from being a business owner and then taking a different step into working for someone else? Like there must have been an interesting sort of like pivot from being at Six Barrel to then Creative HQ. Did that, like what did that do to you? Was there a bit of ego involved? Like what is that like?
Yeah, it was hard. I think I was really ready for it though. Like one of the things I'm someone who always likes to learn stuff and learn from other people. And also I'd been, making all or most of the decisions for so long. It was like, probably be quite nice to like palm off some responsibility to other people to make decisions or make them in more of a team setting. So that was really good. And then working with other people who I can learn off, right? And learn different things. Because, part of the challenge with a business is you learn a lot over the years, but it starts to be, pretty narrow at some point, right? So yeah, I think that was the key for me, is like working with other people who I can learn things off. Learning about different industries, and getting support.
Well, like, what do you get up to? Obviously, you got like a family, but like in your spare time, because I think if you're channeling so much energy and focus into, like your business and what you do, like, have you got other areas of your life that you, are really like passionate about and put time into? Family's obviously an obvious one, but
yeah, family's pretty major. I think. Over the last few years, I've been spending any kind of spare time I've got on like feeling better, right? So a lot of it has been, meditation and yoga and saunas and things like that are like, that's kind of what I spend a lot of my very limited small amount of time on. I got lots of stuff that I'm interested in, like, basketball and current events and, philosophy and things like that. So I do a lot of like learning in my spare time, but I don't have like a, ultra marathon side hustle or anything.
60 kilometer runs every Saturday. Those people are weapons, eh?
That's it.
The meditation piece is really cool. It's something that I've never practiced myself, but I mean, I've never heard anyone say that meditation is a waste of time. Like how has that benefited you and like your life?
Like it's legit been a massive game changer. I think it's the thing that I've done that has helped more for my like mental health and just like sense of general well-being and like being less of an asshole, you know. I think it makes you, it's just the time, right? So it's just time, quiet time, helps me sleep better. Yeah, I think it's been a huge game changer.
Do you like, it's like a morning ritual or like before bed?
Well, like as often as possible, but before bed is the thing. I think, you know, like most busy people, you know, when I shut my eyes are just like, you know, like thoughts going crazy. So it's quite a good, circuit breaker for that. I reckon it's like, you know, you spend the first 5 minutes of it trying to get out of all of that, and then you have that quiet time to help you kind of lean into it. So yeah, that's been good, but yeah, as much as possible.
Do you do like guided meditations, or because you can get those good like apps, that sort of speak you through?
They're really good. Yeah. I've done all of the apps, and they I think they're really helpful for getting started. I've probably been doing it long enough. Mostly, I just sit there and do it now.
Yeah, free solo.
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do, you know, classes and go to retreats and things like that as well, which is helpful.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's gonna get to the point where I'm just like, I just need to give it a try. So yeah, I'll let you know once I do some meditation.
It's a gateway, man. It's a gateway.
Yeah. What's the gateway into? Like
gateway to full relaxation. Yeah.
Pure bliss.
That's right.
Cool. Yeah, I think like another sort of question I've got here is around like how founders, I guess entrepreneurs or people wanting to scale a business, like what do they sort of get wrong about growth and like wanting to you know, maybe go really fast, really aggressively? Like what does successful sort of like growth in a business look like from your perspective? I guess it's very contextualized to what the business is doing, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, in my job at Creative HQ, that's what I, you know, work with lots of startup companies trying to and I think they make, you know, we all make lots of mistakes, right? One is thinking it's going to be easy. Yeah. You know, they're like, well, I've built this great product, and, you know, and we were definitely like that for Six Pro. We're like, our product's great. Everyone should just buy it. So they definitely underestimate, one, how much anyone's going to care about what you're making. Like, you know, you pour everything into this product or this service or this whatever, and unless you're solving a real critical problem that they've been dying for a solution to, which is a very rare business, it's going to be hard, right? So you're going to have to reach them. You're going to have to convince them to buy your stuff, stay with you, that sort of thing. So they probably underestimate how hard it's going to be. Probably underestimate the importance of like community, like building a really tight community around what you're doing is key and hard. But yeah, leaning and possibly learning from customers as well, right? Like so much of what we've done at Six Barrel is because customers have been like, I like this, but not that. And, you know, I want to buy it from these types of stores. That type of thing can really just help. It just solves your problems for you, right? Rather than having to try and come up with everything yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I had Paul Ballantyne, who's the founder of Moana Road, sponsor the podcast, shout out. And he was saying, because, you know, they go over to like trade shows in China, and he's always looking out for like, what's the next thing that people want and that they'll buy. And like product, like market testing is so big for him. Like he's just got like a group chat full of people that, you know, he trusts and understands Moana Road, and they're just, you know, sort of consumers. And he'll just send out, you know, like screenshots or like, hey, thinking about doing like an hoodie, would your kid like wear this?
Yeah, cool.
And he's always just constantly like testing those waters, rather than just, you know, I guess investing in heaps of products and then it flops and
hoping it works.
Yeah.
I think there's that level too, right? Where the first, whatever your product is, you know, 10 or 100 or 1,000 customers, depending on how much you're charging or whatever, the first bit's actually not that hard, right? Like there's, you know, people you know, or friends or family, or people who are like really those early adopters. There's the big gap is then from there to like that's the hard part, right? So it's hard, but not that hard to get a business off the ground. It's hard, but not that hard to grow it to a, you know, certain size, and it's really hard to do the next bit.
Yeah. Is there anything like in particular that you think's like holding back like small to medium size businesses or like startups at the moment?
Yeah, heaps of things. Like availability of investment is challenging, right? There's definitely plenty of money out there. It's quite narrow into what types of businesses and certainly types of founders it goes to.
Okay. Can you touch on that a bit more? Like, what does it usually go into? Is like tech the cool new thing everyone's sort of investing into, or?
Yeah, well, like in the kind of VC world, right?
Yeah.
It's all not necessarily like software tech, but software and hardware tech. 97% of all VC money goes to male founders.
Wow. I think Anna shouted that out.
She probably
actually.
did.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and especially because female founder companies are really solid. So there's definitely there's money out there, but it's probably not going exactly where it should. It also, the investors are always looking for these billion-dollar businesses, right? And they're missing the really good middle-sized businesses. $100 million businesses. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's that. I think partly maybe it's the it's hard to do it, right? Especially if you've got an established career. It's risky to go, hey, I'm going to go and leave my $100K a year job to give this thing a nudge. So more support in that space would be really helpful, because I think more people would start more interesting companies if it was slightly less risky to give it a go.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, we've got some sort of quick fire questions here, Joe. Just want to say a massive thanks for jumping on the podcast. I feel this has been a bit of a masterclass in, I don't know, launching, marketing, and sort of scaling a company. So thank you. I've got lots of value out of this and really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me in sunny Parramatta.
Yeah, man, anytime. And also, make sure you go check out Six Barrel Soda team. We got some nice lemon honey ginger just on the table if you're watching. Awesome. So, Joe, what brings you true happiness?
I don't know if I've got it, but certainly feeling calm is the closest I get to feeling like things are all right.
What is the meaning of life?
Oh God, you've hit me with the big ones, haven't you? The meaning of life is to try lots of different things, learn lots, and be nice to people around you.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Trust the process, enjoy the journey.
What does legacy mean to you?
Happy and thoughtful children.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
I would solve the inequality problems.
And what do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
Old people.
Oh, nice. I love that. Every time I ask it, there's always a different response. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Really, really appreciate it, man. We'll finish up with just a quick quote. This is from David Clark, who's a software engineer, and it's about sort of priorities. And it was actually quite confronting reading this and the sort of research, and I was like, oh, what? But then, I don't know, it's just confronting as a parent. And it says, 20 years from now, the only people who remember that you worked late are your kids.